Welcome back to Lazy History Club, where we brew tea, stoke the fire, and discover the past is stranger than your uncle's backyard fireworks display. Today's tale, it's July 4th, the nation's big birthday bash. But for 3 US presidents, the day turned from cake and cannons to coffin and chorus. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both died on July 4th, 1826. It's the 50th anniversary of the Declaration they'd helped craft. 5 years later, James Monroe joined the Erie Parade, expiring on July 4th, 1831. And just to keep things numerically balanced, Calvin Coolidge was born on the holiday in 1872. Grab your sparklers and a fresh box of tissues. We're attending history's strangest Independence Day reunion. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were the original political odd couple. Best friends in revolution, frenemies in government, and passive-aggressive pen pals in retirement. By 1826, both were elderly, ill, and stubbornly determined to outlive the other. Because nothing says patriotism like competitive longevity. On the morning of July 4th, Adams, 90 years old, awoke in Massachusetts, looked out at a rain-soaked sky and muttered, "It is a great day." Doctors offered laudanum. He preferred stubbornness. Meanwhile in Virginia, 83-year-old Jefferson drifted in and out of consciousness at Monticello, whispering, "Is it the 4th?" Family assured him it was. Even if they had to nudge the clock a bit, Jefferson faded first, around 1 in the afternoon. Roughly 5 hours later, Adams slipped away, after reportedly murmuring, "Thomas Jefferson still survives." He was wrong, but the cosmic timing was perfect. The two architects of independence exiting on the jubilee they'd created. News travelled by horse, boat, and astonished rumour. Boston newspapers wrote of a solemn triumph of Providence, while Philadelphia described a nation dumb with mingled grief and awe. Orators had prepared celebratory speeches. They hastily tacked on eulogies, turning picnics into wakes where citizens toasted liberty with teary cider mugs. Church bells rang as scheduled for Independence Day. Only now they doubled as funeral chimes. One sermon declared, "The Almighty has affixed his sacred signature to the parchment of 76 by taking its 2 chief authors home on its golden jubilee." Hyperbole? Sure. But imagine seeing Twitter trend, "Jach, both founders gone," before you'd finished your morning corn dodger. 5 years later, the Republic assumed lightning wouldn't strike thrice. Enter James Monroe, the 5th president, Revolutionary War veteran, and last of the so-called Founding Father presidents. Monroe spent his final months in New York City, weakened by tuberculosis and grief over his wife's death. On July 3rd, 1831, his doctors predicted hours, not days. Yet Monroe clung to life past midnight. Family noticed. The date exchanged uneasy glances, and by mid-afternoon of the 4th, the era of good feelings president followed Adams and Jefferson to that grand caucus in the sky. 3 presidents, 3 deaths, 1 holiday. Coincidence or cosmic punchline? NPG.edu papers marvelled. The 4th hath again demanded its offering. 19th century editors did the statistical gymnastics. 3 out of 7 deceased presidents had now perished on July 4th, nearly half. Pamphlets warned public figures to avoid excitable exertions on the holiday. One doctor prescribed quiet reflection and limited cider. Superstitious Americans lit fewer firecrackers, fearing the day's growing death aura. Preachers alternated between proclaiming divine design and muttering, "Well, that's weird." A satirist wrote that future presidents should sign living wills on July 3rd just in case. Fast forward to 1872. In rural Vermont, a baby named John Calvin Coolidge arrived in his parents' farmhouse on, you guessed it, July 4th. Newspapers rejoiced. At last, a president born, not buried, on America's Day. Coolidge eventually became the 30th president, known for silence, thrift, and dry wit. When asked about the Erie Presidential July 4 Club, he quipped, "It is a good day to be born. Better than to die, I think." Ever the accountant, Coolidge evened the ledger. 3 deaths, 1 birth, statistical balance restored. Historians offer rational explanations. Midsummer heat aggravating chronic illness. Revolutionary-era doctors relying on bleeding and brandy. Sheer coincidence. Yet the myth persists that the 4th claims its founders like a patriotic grim reaper. Textbooks still footnote the triple death coincidence. Tour guides at presidential homes whisper it to visitors. Trivia buffs drop it at barbecue tables between bites of charred corn. And somewhere, a future president glances at the calendar and thinks, maybe I'll schedule my checkup for June. So, there you have it, the 4th of July. Fireworks for the living, exit ramp for 3 of America's earliest leaders, and birthday candle for a taciturn Vermonter. Next time you watch rockets glare red, white and blue, remember, history sometimes times its curtain calls with unnerving precision. And if you're a president, maybe skip the cherries and milk, just in case. Stay lazy, stay curious, and keep an eye on the calendar. The end.